Hello, everyone. Hello, Heather. Hello,
Hello.
Angela, Barbie, Ray. This is exciting. We keep changing up the show and we keep adding people to the show. This is great. So, Angela joined us last week for the first time. Barbie has been on and off over the years, but Barbie's going to be hopefully coming on a lot more and talking to us a lot about HR issues. Barbie, you want to give people an update about what you're doing right now and some of the things that you have happening?
Sure. There's, working as chief people officer fractionally for safe security and spending a lot of my time there, as well as, advising a few other companies and helping them grow and helping mentor their leadership teams and their HR teams as well. So it's been fun. And of course, still do some speaking engagements related to the book that I wrote, Lead and Let Live. So having a good time.
That is awesome. So both Angela and Barbie work with us. So if you want to reach out and you want to work with them on a project, please feel free to do that. So we're excited to have them on the team. So we're going to talk a little bit about career development and employee retention today, which is pretty much a hot topic, as this is one of the main drivers for employee retention. Is how are you developing people internally? And Ray, I know you had some strong feelings about wanting to tee this conversation up, so why don't you jump in and get us started?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things we're doing with a lot of our clients is really starting on day one, is just making sure that when somebody joins an organization, I mean, you have one chance to make a good impression, and having, you know, the basics, their equipment, their office setup is critical to employee retention, and then also to have a good 100-day plan for them. And we've been doing this with our clients, putting in, who they should meet, what goals should they accomplish, in the first, week, 30, 90, 100 days, is critical. And a big part of that is, kind of integrating into the organization, which quickly drives employee retention. And then the other part of it is career development, is making sure that somebody is talking to that new hire about their career, what are the opportunities inside the organization, and what the company is going to do for them to support them in their career development. So, this is huge. And when you spend, um, $50, $100,000 to fill a role, to not focus on this is just asking for turnover.
So Barbie, you've had a lot of really big roles where you've brought people in at Netflix and other places. What's been your view, and what's been some of these premier companies' view on this?
Yeah, I have conflicting views. I could debate this topic with just myself in the room. Um,
Ooh, I
so
like that.
yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things that companies can do that will aid with career development. You can do job rotation programs, you can do career pathing, and you can do skill sets, competencies, and how to grow and all that good formal, more bureaucratic stuff around career development. But I think at the end of the day, really true career development comes from setting expectations and providing feedback so people understand their gaps and where they need to grow. And none of that's going to be solved by some super formal process, right, that you could put in play. So it's really about the everyday investment that our managers make in their employees and that our peers make in each other, right? And so I find that to be super critical. What I also find critical in a successful employee is initiative. So, what I want to feel like is that employees will say, I own my career. This company is a stop on my career. It's not my first and last job. That's very rare. And the amount of time people are staying at one company is not 30 years anymore, right? So, companies need to recognize that they're a stop in someone's overall career. They are not someone's overall career and final destination. So, how are you walking them through ownership of their own career? So, if I'm going to say, hey, we're going to start using AI more at the company, then what employees actually take the initiative to learn AI? Or am I going to roll out an AI learning program for the whole company that applies to some people who know nothing about it and need the fundamentals, but bores the other half of the organization that already has taken the initiative and learned them, right? So it's not a one size fits all in terms of the learnings that your organization needs. So that's why I say I can kind of debate with myself here. I think the competencies and career pathings can be valuable and important. Job rotation, if you're at a big company, can be great. If you're at a startup, not very realistic. You need A players in every role. You don't really have time to train them. You need them doing it now. Um, so it's going to be different for your organization and every person. And that manager having the skill set and the training to personalize the needs for their employees to meet the employees where they're at and take them where they need to go is super critical.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Now, Angela, you come out of a big company, and then you've also been in smaller companies in the financial services space. So I think one company had a lot of dollars where they could throw at this, and then other companies probably haven't had as much money. So, what has been your experience with this?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think is most important through the process, and Barbie in some ways touched on it, is more the company values related to career development and growth. What I've seen be a disadvantage for companies is when you have managers that hoard talent and don't want to share talent with others, and or don't want to grow the talent so that the talent goes unnoticed. And so I think whether you're a small or a big company, having the managerial courage to believe in this and also, link it back to the core values of the organization is really important so that employees believe and see that there is opportunity for that. But to your point, both big and small organizations, I think for me, the thing that also stands out to me is when I would write development plans or talk to employees about development plans, it would mostly go to the training that they were being sent to go take. And that for me was always, disappointing, and that so much of what people learn and the growth comes from experiences and mentorship from others, which for the most part, other than time, is a free resource in the organization to share and build that network. And so that's something, Jason, that I think is so critical today, especially when you're strapped and can't afford to send people out to classes, is really looking within the internal opportunities, yes, job assignments, but special projects, and really being clear first on, what skills you're trying to grow so that we can match, I say we, but the, organization leadership there can help match those opportunities to what's going to be the biggest accelerators to close those gaps.
Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. Now, Barbie, you said an interesting word. You said initiative. Do we believe that? Now, I have an opinion on this. I won't telegraph it, but do we
Mhm.
believe that employees are showing more initiative or less initiative? Where do we stand with initiative?
I feel like the some people in the current workforce are waiting for us to give it to them or do it for them instead of saying, this is what I need to learn. I don't need to wait for HR to give it to me. I'm going to go find it, right? And there's really no excuse not to go find it. I remember back in the day, let's rewind, 25 years ago, I'll be aging myself, where people would ask you, employees would ask a question, you'd be okay, let me Google that for you, right? There's a little bit with learning into that companies can absolutely do a lot to help foster it, right? And you've seen companies do things of, databases of skill sets and interests. So Jason and I were just talking about, I just got a French exchange student, right? So if I'm fluent in French, maybe I put that in there. And then if someone has a special project that requires French fluency, they can do a search on all employees who know French, and see who to pull in, which is great. And it could be C++, or it could be, marketing, or, whatever that thing is or that interest is. It can be useful. I find it useful even in a retreat or offsite when you want to have music play, and you can say people put in that they play guitar or they sing or they play drums, and you can even get an impromptu band together, which is just fun. So when you're talking about employee retention, it's fun to bring people's outside interests into the company too, to make it feel more, like a socially, fun place to work instead of just getting the bare minimum done. So I do think that the initiative piece isn't, you own your career, and employees need to know you own your career. We might offer you resources, we might offer training programs, but you have to own it. So it's safe security when someone comes on board. It's similar to what you were talking about, Jason. We want to make sure they have their computer and they have things. But we also use an employee engagement system that has learning and development in it. So on day one, they're able to give people feedback through that system. They're able to see what learnings we already have and look at different career paths for learning and participate in those. We don't make it mandatory, but it's enlightening for me to see who is taking the initiative and going and looking at that. I did a manager development program once with another company, and I brought in outside resources to train people on being better managers. I did an application process. I had room for every manager at the company to participate in this, but I did an application process to see who wanted to and who was willing to dedicate their time to becoming a better leader. Now, at the end of the day, we still included everybody, but that was a big factor for evaluating where our talent was at and who has the initiative to want to be their best leader they can be. So there's little things you can do to assess out who does have the initiative, but you also need to make sure that managers are. So Angela talked about this, the culture that you're building in, right? Are you building a culture that has time for learning? Are you building a culture of continuous learning? It's one thing to say, I've got this great leadership development program you can go through, but but I'm going to treat you like Cinderella. You got to get this done and this done and this done and this done and this done before you can go to the ball, right? Are we giving people a chance to go to the ball? Or are we not looking at workload? Are we not considering learning as part of workload, right? And we're not balancing that out with the results that need to get done, but we're also embedding a culture of continuous learning at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's always a poor thing that management does. Is I don't think we ever give enough time for that, and there's always an excuse to get out of a class at the last minute or get out of a program at the last minute because
Mhm.
you have too many deliverables that stacked up, and that typically happens with people who are high performers. They
Yeah.
would love to go to the training, the class, or whatever it is, but because they have 10 million projects, because the lower performers aren't getting those are always the people that have a lot of work. I mean, I think we have less initiative in the workforce than we ever have had before. That's just my 2 cents. And it was interesting. We had a conversation with a client this morning, and they have a fairly unique program where people are paid, exempt employees are paid, for their 40 hours a week. But if they work more than 40 hours a week, they then get more compensation on top of that. So they have an hourly rate that goes on top of the 40 hours. And so I asked this individual, do you find that a lot of people get upset by the fact that you offer an hourly pay on top of your 40 hours? And she says, yeah, we do. She's like, why do you say that? And I said, because I'm sure that people don't like the fact that there's a real expectation to do more than 40 hours worth of work, because now you can say, oh, you're going to get paid for that 40 hours worth of work. And she said, now there's more of a huge pushback on that being a positive, positive for the employee. Now it's becoming a net negative because people don't want to have those things impinge on their work-life balance. Where for me, that would have been like, oh my gosh, I get to work more and make more money. But now that people don't want to put that initiative in. So I think you're right. I think employees really need to rise up and put the initiative into getting themselves where they want to go.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. The other thing about paying overtime, essentially, to exempt employees is it makes them feel like non-exempt employees. They don't like that either, right? They want to feel like I got a degree, I built my career. I shouldn't worry about an hourly rate anymore. So that's probably also a factor there.
It's just weird to me. Like I think it would be
It's
great.
short-sighted. Yeah, it is short-sighted. Why would you not want to make more money? It does feel short-sighted, but I've seen that experience come when I've had to reclassify employees to non-exempt from exempt, and it's like you're going to make more money, but it's still upsetting. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Ray, you're on mute.
Yeah, going on the same topic of kind of the initiative part of it. I mean, we're starting to see a trend where some employees want to step back. I mean, they've gotten into the leadership role, they've got the big responsibility, and now they're saying, you know what, I really don't want it. I want to go backwards. Put me back down as an individual contributor, project manager, and and that's another sign of a problem in the organization that we have to work with the leadership team on. But no, I think it's the the
Do
career
you
development
think that's a
piece. Yeah,
problem, Ray, or do you think that's a recognition of my skills are more valuable to the company as an individual contributor than as a leader? I think that can be a real positive when someone recognizes, you know
yeah,
what, I'm a better doer than I am a leader,
yeah,
and I don't think that's a
yeah.
problem.
Self-selects. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's. I think it could be one. Yeah, it could be positive, like you said. But I think the other challenge is if you're starting to see that happen more and more in the organization, there could be some other factors that are
yeah,
causing. What's the root cause of people doing that?
mhm.
And it may be more organizational than necessarily the individual.
It could be. I
Yeah.
know at
Yep.
Netflix, when anyone wanted to be promoted to
Yeah.
leaders, I tried to put the fear of whatever whoever they might
Yeah.
worship into them, being,
Yeah.
are you sure? Do you find more satisfaction by finding someone who can do it better than you than doing it yourself?
Yep.
Because if you don't, you might not want to be a leader. Do you enjoy recruiting? Do you enjoy setting expectations? Do you enjoy giving difficult feedback? Do you enjoy career coaching and mentorship?
Yep.
If not, run away. Right?
So
So,
true.
yeah.
So true.
Yeah, one of the other things I'd add too is, I mean, I think today the career lattice concept is even more important than ever, where to take the stigma away from stepping back or even moving sideways as being an opportunity to promote with
Mhm.
organizations that may not have the ability to have, massive layers in the organization to be able to move around and create that depth of experience and knowledge is also really critical in helping to get to those bigger roles and those promotional opportunities. So
Mhm.
I always
Barbie,
felt
I appreciate the pause on that one.
that's I always felt like if you were in a senior leadership role that you worked hard to get into and that you wanted to be there, and then you stuck your hand up and you said, "Yeah, this is a little bit too much for me. I want to take a step back." I always felt like that was pretty much going to be the death of your career at certain places. Like, wait a minute, like we're not interested in not having somebody that wants to continue to work hard and move up the ladder. And yeah, now we're going to question how fast you're going to work, what's the speed you're going to work at, and what's your runway here. I've just felt like if you do that, you're really putting your career at risk in most places, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's sad. I don't think you're wrong. I think there's some companies who do perceive that, but again, I think they're missing the forest for the trees there. Let's face it, the biggest problem that most companies have is in promoting people who are great at their jobs into leadership that aren't great leaders. So you're really promoting your best individual contributors to become leaders at a lot of companies. And then you're going to say, okay, you're my best IC, you weren't my best leader, but now you can't be an IC either. I mean, it feels like it shouldn't be that way. Now, granted, if they've already filled your position, we promoted you and we backfilled you, then maybe there's not a role for you anymore. But I think that you should reward people for that self-awareness and for that self-selection of saying, hey, I add more value here. And I think you should have dual career paths. And I think there absolutely should be career paths for people who want to be great at their craft but don't want to lead it as far as managing people. There's a lot of great leaders that don't manage people. So there's leadership and there's management, right? So you've got to have a path for people who don't want to manage people. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I love to meet an employee who say, I never want to be a manager. It's like, I love you. You understand that it's
Yeah.
a hard job, right? And you want to keep coding. That's great. So
Yeah.
I hope that fewer and fewer companies have that reaction because I would hate to discourage people from following the path that's best for them and adds the most value for their company. You,
Mm.
you wouldn't you
Yeah.
wouldn't think a company would want to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when we put together, salary structures, job levels, and architecture, job architectures, we always really push on, hey, there's got to be, an individual contributor track that parallels with the manager track. It may not go all the way to a vice president level, but it's got to get close. I mean, you got to have those, those architects and those, you know, individuals who are at the very, very high level from an individual contributor perspective. So
Mhm.
that's a great point.
Yeah, managing people is tough. I mean, I've had situations where I've had 21 direct reports before, and to do 21 different performance reviews, have 21 different ongoing one-on-ones, 21 different sets of problems that you have to manage every day. Now, granted, my span of control was really out of whack, but that's because we didn't want we didn't want small span of controls. but it's a lot of work. I mean, you get up early in the morning and you go to bed very late at night, especially if you have distributed teams and you still have your own work to do. You still have the projects that you're assigned by your manager or your VP or whoever. So it's an intense amount of pressure and work. And so um, it would be great if you could feel like, hey, I could take a step back for a little bit and I don't have to have all of this pressure on me. But yeah, it's being a leader is really hard. And then the other thing too is, as a leader, you have to, and especially now, and not that you didn't have to before, but you need to be empathetic. You need to take on the issues. You need to manage in the right way. You can't blow people off and say, go do it yourself or go deal with it, because they'll go, talk to your VP or management and say, hey, Jason sucks. He won't deal with any of the problems. He won't help me. In the old days, I don't mean it like that, but in the past, you could be a little bit more of a disengaged leader. And I think that now there's just no way that you can do that. You have to be thoughtful, you have to be engaged, and you have to solve problems. Or otherwise you're going to be your team is not going to let you stay in that position for very long. So it's very challenging. At least that's my 2 cents.
No, it is. It is. I would agree. And when we talk to some of our clients, in certain roles, they bring that to us, saying, this is not easy, having to deal with a CEO, and then on top of that, having to deal with all the my direct reports, and they're kind of getting it on both sides, which is not easy.
Yeah.
All right, Angela, then Barbie, you guys want to put a bow on this? Angela, what do you think?
Sure. No, I was just going to add the role of the middle manager is so critical. I'm being in the middle, as you just phrased it, Ray, as you're getting ran over on both sides potentially, but I see a lot of opportunity in that. Whereas, it may seem powerless. I mean, there's so many opportunities for managing leaders to show empathy, to, be the change they want to see in the organization, and help contribute to engagement and retention, so that they don't have to deal with the challenges of having to bring new people in, and going through that process and loss of productivity, as they may see it.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody hate the middle manager? Isn't that a dirty word now?
No, we love them. No. We want to give them hugs.
Much
yeah. Yeah. And I would just add to that we talk about reasons for quitting or reason for leaving a company, and we talk about employee engagement, we talk about career development. Really, it's all about the direct manager, right? And the experience you're having with your direct manager. And it all comes down to that. Your direct manager is advocating for you to have the correct pay. Your manager is advocating for you to have career development. What does my manager advocate and support me? So I think that when I think about being an HR leader, and if I want to have the biggest impact on the company that I can have, is it building a giant HR team to go do that job for all the first line managers? Or is it to make sure I'm spending my time in training and learning on the managers to make sure they're the best managers and leaders that the company can have? And then that will then translate and scale to their teams. For them to understand the resources they have, for them to understand how to have career development discussions, for them to understand that your OKR should have a development OKR too, not just a business OKR, right? These things of really helping your managers grow to be better managers, I think in turn provide a better employee experience and better career development for your employees. But that's where you get your scale, is through great managers.
You're right. And I guess I was really bad, because I would have said I want power and to build my empire, but there was a right answer in that question. So yeah, that's exactly the right answer, and totally agree with you. So this is a super exciting conversation. I'm glad we were able to have it. And I just would love I love the fact that we have these great voices within our organization now that you'll be hearing from, and that, spread the word that we are available to help you and consult with you and work with you and be there with you, from Angela to Barbie to Ray. So we're super excited about all of the opportunity to give you guys the leading voices in HR. So anything I missed? Anything else that we want to wrap up with?
No, all right. Thank you, guys.
Sounds good. We'll be back at this next week.
Thanks all.
All right, take care. Bye.